It's a little bit after 4:30, and I recognize there's a quorum, so I call the meeting of the July 21st Airport Authority meeting to order. Approval, our first order of business is approval of the minutes for the June 16th meeting, regular meeting. Can I have a motion to approve the minutes?
I'm making a motion, we approve the meetings for the June 16th.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All right, all those in favor of approving the minutes, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The minutes are passed. Next order of business is the airport operations. Chip, you want to give us a summary of where we are?
All good, checked with Kyle today, all the lights are working. Usual NOTAMs, we have about some minimums on instrument approaches. The only new one that was added is the one for the windsock that blew over. And Kyle found one a little bit cheaper than the first quote, and he's ordered it. He was going to order it today for the end of the day.
So we'll talk about that,
Okay.
So anyway, all right, next, number 5 is the discussion, and that discussion of the construction of hangars on the east side by the authority. Don, you want to lead that?
Sure. Yes, thank you, Joe. We have been working off of a list and working from the premise of first come, first served as far as the order of deposit checks that have been received by me. We have 19 checks in hand, and I think that we're going to vote today, at least I propose a vote, to build 20 hangars. And we can easily get more than 20 deposits, I'm sure. So for those deposits that are over and above what we build, their deposits will be returned. And it's been very encouraging. So I guess we could have some discussion, but I think that we're going to end up choosing a number, which is debatable, whether it be 20 or 30, and have a vote on that.
But the deposits you've gotten is not everyone on. In other words, you still have people on the list that you.
Yes, right. There are still people on the list that I have yet to approach. So we could end up with 30 deposits pretty easily, Chip.
How many people are on the list?
42.
And you've got 20 deposits or so?
We've got 19, yes.
So I guess if it's doing this systematically, I think we first need to vote on how many hangars, T hangars we want to build, and then really kind of getting into Hank's which of the program, which hangars where do we want to build the hangars? Does that make sense?
Well, I'll let Hank, Chip and Don and I met with Hank and discussed options, and he's got what we think is the best option.
Why don't you Hank, why don't you move out of order and come up and talk about make your recommendation as far as options as far as T hangars? And I think you all have something in your package about the hangars too.
Yeah, I think everybody should have a copy of the plan. One of the alternates, I guess, that was selected by Chip, and Vince, and Don and I, that we'd sit down and talked about. And basically, I think it was lots 12 and 13 originally that we took that did have corporate hangars in those locations, and then we pulled them out, substituted in 2 10-unit T hangars that are approximately 265 foot in length and I think 60 feet wide. They fit in there pretty nice. I think they'll work. So I guess where they are is
so the recommendation is for P13 and P14 for 2 10-unit T hangars?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Well, we did a couple other things here, though. You still got 15, 16, and 17 down at the bottom. A recommendation might be for 20, but we have potential for 40 to 45 because we made a recommendation, and Hank drew it this way, that we flip P18 in the fuel farm. That looks like a better location for the fuel farm, and it gets P18 potential T hanger or box hanger over by the other T hanger / box hanger.
So we've moved the fuel farm, the fuel farm was at P18, so you've moved the fuel farm down some, is that right?
Yes. Correct.
South.
What about if we had other people that wanted to build 100 by 100 hangars, is there any other place to build them on the east side?
Right south of the fuel farm, there's
Those are 90 by 100, but those are, I mean, they're pretty close though, is that right?
Yeah, I mean, there are
Yeah,
four
and then-
spots there.
You'd have to have a bunch of apron space constructed over there too, because right now there's nothing there.
So right now, when we build P10 and P11 out, we don't have any more space for corporate hangars on the east side,
As it is right now.
as it is right now.
And the dotted line that goes around P11 is basically the original lease line that had two lots.
Yeah.
So, and then we just put in that one hangar that I think
A
there was
bigger
possi-
hangar.
Yeah, a bigger hangar. I think it was 100 by 220 or something that somebody was looking at.
And for the record, P12 over there in the data sheet doesn't exist anymore.
Correct. I do have that updated on this sheet, and I can leave that with you guys.
Hank, let me ask you a question, just out of curiosity, on 19 through 22. If we were to lease those down the road, the tenant would build out to the shaded area. And would we have to have all of that ramp done, or could we get a
You
taxiway
could-
like we did down the other side?
You could do a taxiway basically like a J shape or something.
So we could use.
We didn't have to build all that
Yeah,
aprons,
yeah.
just,
So
You
at
could do
least it's
that.
an option without having to have that whole area filled.
Right, yes, if you had to do that. You basically just continue that hatched area on around the south and then turn it back to the west.
and why are these 90 by 100, why couldn't they be couldn't you do 100 by 100 there?
We just drew them 90 by 100 to try to optimize the space that was allowed so that you could get the most hangars in that
You
spot.
couldn't get 100 by 100 in those lots?
Yeah, you can, but you're gonna give up one of the spots and you're
Ah, I
gonna end
see
up
what
wasting
you're saying.
space.
Either that or you're gonna have to require firewalls.
And keep in mind, these lots that we've got over here, we just drew them in at 90 by 100, but those can
I
change
understand,
based on the tenant that comes in.
So, do I have a recommendation that we adopt the revised airport layout, east side airport layout plan?
I'll make that motion.
I'll second.
Okay. Any more discussion?
Do you want to include the number of hangars to be?
Let's do two
Okay,
motions, let's do
sure.
two, okay? All those in favor of the motion, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, signify by saying nay.
Quick question.
All right,
Didn't we talk about swapping the FBO building and the service hangar? So that when you drive in to the FBO, first thing you see is a brand-new, beautiful FBO office and not the service hangar. That's P.
you mean you're talking about,
P8,
P8,
P9,
P8,
flipping
yeah.
them,
yeah.
yeah, we can do that.
Do that.
Yeah.
We did talk about that. I mean,
Yes, we did.
We'd have P8 there, then P9, the service hangar.
Yeah, and we can, well, the thing with, we just have to be careful with P9 because P9 is gonna be, if you'll notice, the ultimate approach slope that almost touches that parking lot, that building is gonna get cut by that line.
Meaning that you can't be too high.
Right, correct. Meaning you can't be in that location with anything.
And
That's
depending
an
on,
RPZ.
yeah, I mean, a lot of people now have, awnings where you can taxi under.
Sure.
I mean, if someone wanted that, then they'd want it like this layout, but we can do either one.
So I mean, so what you're saying is that we're really kind of locked into this proposal? I mean, this is
Not really, it's all based on the size of the actual building.
the height of the.
Yeah, so,
of the
it-
hangar.
I mean, as far as the terminal layout plan is, we can flip things around and move
Okay.
them as we need to. But you just need to be mindful that what you put where doesn't interfere with some sort of approach surface that ultimately you want to get to.
I just think aesthetically it would be
It would look
preferable
nice,
to
yeah.
have.
Yeah.
A little cleaner to have somebody when they drive up, see
Yeah.
the, I agree. But we could, this doesn't include that.
No, this does not. It's no different than all the changes we've made to it thus far.
All right, so we have a motion, a second, some discussion. All those in signify of the revised hangar plan, signify by saying aye.
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 Any opposed? The ayes have it. So we've revised the east side hangout layout plan. All right, now you want to talk about the number of hangars?
Well, 20 hangars seems to be the magic number, Joe. And again, we're right under 20 deposits in hand at 19. Another 20 or so people need to be approached. So we'll be over 20 deposits in hand, and I'm comfortable with 20 hangars to start with. And if we end up with a substantial number, maybe 15 more than 20, say 35 total deposits rather, maybe we can talk about in the next, near future, putting up another row or two of hangars. I think this thing is really going to take off on its own
Take off.
momentum. No pun intended, sorry. But anyway, I think it's going to do well.
And I understand the demands there. I guess I go back to like, if we do a cost, if we look at the, we start to do $425 a month rent, we have some amenities, we have doors, we know what the cost of building. Do these things cash flow on a 15-year amortization?
I'll let Vince address that.
I think they do. There's going to be some discussion come up here in a minute about we're going to have to do this without grant money if we want that to happen. Because the grant money is going to actually cost us some money.
Because we have to, okay.
But they will cash flow. They'll cash flow pretty well, actually. And we do, I don't want to go rob every account we have, but we do have
We do have some.
100,000 over here and 69 coming over here, and we have some of our own money that we can use instead of the 250.
Can we I'm okay going forward with the 20, but I'd like to look at it really good and get a good detailed projection, working with Amy to make sure that it does cash flow.
I agree. We needed a layout and a number that we want to talk about, because both of these, P13 and P14, are both 265 feet. That's the larger door.
Yeah.
So one of them could wind up being 248 feet. It's less expensive, and it'd be a regular T-hanger. One could be a larger T-hanger, which would demand more money. And we can play with those numbers based off a layout that we think the authority wants to do.
But if we need to go to the city and ask for the council's blessing, if you will, I want to be able to say that these things cash flow.
Sure.
Does that make
I mean,
sense?
we can
So,
take this
hey,
and do a budget.
Joe,
Yes, Jack.
can y'all hear me?
We can. We can't see you, but we can hear you.
Yeah, well, I can cut the camera on if you want to look to see me that bad.
We're good.
So what I would envision was, going to the bank and, I think that having that many signed contracts in hand will make a pretty compelling argument. But if that doesn't make enough of an argument for them to loan us money, and then also if we can get better terms, if you have the city's backing, I think that I would go to bat for the airport authority to the city council and just get them to, help us get the loan and not be on the hook for any of the payment at all. I don't want to put the city on the hook for the payment. We won't need to if it cash flows, but just to have backup to maybe get, either get the financing or even get better terms for the financing, because we get really good rates.
Well, that's what I would anticipate, and that would be the best of all worlds. I mean, if it cash
So if you can
flows-
get that, info to me, Joe, and I really appreciate hearing the fact you say you're gonna, double check the numbers, run the numbers, make sure they make sense, make sure we're cash flowing. And I like the 15-year term too.
Yeah, things work real on 30-year terms, but 15-year terms is more realistic.
Yeah. Okay. I'll mute again.
All right, so we have a motion to build 20 T-hangars over, I guess, are we going to start immediately? Is that the plan, is to go forward quickly?
Yes.
We need to finish our pricing, and then we ought to be ready to say, here's the financial data. Everybody look at it and vote on it, and then start immediately.
All right, so we'll have a motion to build 20 T-hangars on the east side. All those in favor of, what? I need a second.
Sorry.
Thank you. All those in favor of building 20 T-hangars on the east side, and we'll have a variety of financing options, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, the motion carries.
What is the wild guesstimate on cost?
Well, we're fixing to talk about somewhere between $600,000 and $650,000 each, or we're fixing to talk about $1 million each in just a minute. We're
Okay.
going to have two options. The $1 million has some refunds in it, and the other doesn't.
Okay.
Okay. We really aren't Well, I mean, I guess, so and I guess part of that, we've got some deposits, we'll deposit those deposits, we set up an escrow account, we'll set up, deposit those deposits tomorrow, okay? Don, is there anything else you want to talk about on the hangars?
No, I don't. I think that's it for me.
Okay. And we'll, over the next month, Amy and I will work to get into projections, and we'll put together a proposed financing package, either including LDOT money or not including LDOT money or whatever. Does that make sense? Okay.
And I think Hank's got something that he wants to share with us, which includes LDOT money. So
Well, once you're there, why don't you continue since it's a hangar discussion?
Yeah, what we did was, like I said, this project is very much the same project that we recently did at Bay Minette a year and a half ago, 2 years ago. Two 10-unit T-hangars. These T-hangars are slightly larger, just to house larger planes, but the concept's still the same. It was 3 access taxiways to service 2 T-hangar units. And what we did to try to help get the pricing together to make it flow the way ALDOT would require you to make it flow with the state granting for utilizing state funds, is that you have to go through a design, you have to go through a bid, you have to receive bids, then you got to have the project supervised through construction with material test reports and the whole 9 yards. And so what we did is we took that project from Bay Minette and then we tailored it to Fairhope. The only difference being the larger hangar, number one, and the slight increase in the amount of dirt it would take to get up to grade to construct those hangars and the access taxiways. And then we took that estimate using the actual bid prices that we received from Bay Minette and plugged those in. And at the end of the day, what it comes down to is to build 2 10-unit T-hangars of the size that you want to build is going to be roughly $1.825 million.
Okay.
Now that includes all the access taxiways that are FAA compliant. That includes both 10-unit
And
T-hangars.
the taxiways would be reimbursable at some point in time.
A portion of it will be. The portion of it that's deemed strictly public use taxiway is. Matter of fact, I broke that out too. The total FAA eligible cost based on what we have here is $574,000 versus the ineligible cost is $1,251,000. So what's FAA eligible is 500 and,
And is that discretionary money or is that,
no, it'd be reimbursable, so that would be
Reimbursable money.
nothing but you would use your entitlements to get reimbursed.
that's reimbursable above and beyond the 250 if we ask for it.
Yes, the 250 would go towards the 1.2, the latter of the number that I called out, which is the ineligible FAA that ALDOT would participate in.
but that $500,000 would come in $150,000 increments or would?
Yes.
So that would be our nut for 3 years. And,
Would that preclude us from getting other FAA funding?
Not really. I mean, it's all dependent on what the capital improvement plan shows. And that's why I try to stress to you guys a bunch to make sure that the capital improvement plan you put in place has thought about these things so that they see those things on that list a year or 2 or 3 years out, and that's not getting landlocked, if you will, or backed into a corner by an instant change that you make here. The good thing about this, when you seek reimbursement, you don't have to ask for the reimbursement that year. You can, move it to the next year or the next year or the next year, and always keep in mind that your entitlements, you can keep stacking your entitlements up till you get, I think it's 4 years worth up to $600,000. But every time you do a project, the first thing that's gonna come out is the entitlement monies that you have in the bank. And then if the project needs additional money, they're gonna look at discretionaries and state apportionments to get that.
So we would be better off to reimburse ourselves every year.
In a sense, yeah. And then say for example, the runway project, you're gonna have to have discretionary money to strengthen the runway just because of the pure scope and magnitude of the
$3
project.
million.
Yeah. So $150,000 of entitlement ain't gonna get you anywhere. So they already planning for that project, if you will. Same thing for doing the apron expansion on the east side to finish that taxiway and convert it into an apron over there to where those 4 corporate hangars are sitting now. that you wouldn't be able to fund that with entitlement monies. Matter of fact, the projects that you got this year, I think you got $500-something thousand, only $150,000 of that is entitlement. The rest of it is state apportionment money, which is a different pot than the discretionary. But the larger projects will need discretionary funding.
And do we or do we not use the entitlement money for the 5% match when that
No.
applies? We don't?
No.
Okay.
No. Basically, what happens, Josh, whenever we fill that out, let's say the project is, I'm just gonna throw a number, $200,000 project, then the FAA is gonna give you $150,000, and then you're gonna pick up that other, in other words, the entitlements is 90%. So they give you 90% of the project up to $150,000 is probably the best way to say it.
Okay.
So we could, in reality, get 250 ALDOT grant and over a 4-year period, get our $574,000 back. So that'd be 824, which basically leave $1 million that we would have financed elsewhere 4
Correct.
years down the road.
Yeah. Yeah, I think I had that number in there too, somewhere where it was. Yeah, it'd be about $1 million that the airport would be basically on the hook for. And keep in mind that the state grant money's not set in stone yet until it's approved. So even if you went out to build them right now at the 1.8 million that we're showing, which are what I feel are good numbers, because not only that, these numbers reflect the same thing we saw at Foley too. So I feel confident in the numbers. The only thing I would be uncomfortable about is just the amount of activity and construction that's going on right now. The prices may be slightly inflated.
And in that $1.8 million, is that Boker's in management?
That is 100% start today, open doors on a hangar.
So then our other price that we got to work up is if not that it's built to a lesser of a standard, but there's less qualifications if we don't go that route with ALDOT money and reimbursement. And what is that number? And then we'll come with that number, then we can make an educated decision.
What if we split it in one set of 10 hangars without that money and the other 10 on our own?
Well, let's find out what the number
Okay,
is, and
you
then,
know what I'm saying? That would-
then all we got to do is cut it in half and say, here it is.
Yeah.
Well, I guess to kind of play into that conversation, what you need to think about is I think it's somewhat simple. If you got $575,000 worth of eligible reimbursement money with FAA, then you got 250, now you at $1 million or $750,000. That alone, you're not going to construct these hangars and bring the dirt in there for $1 million. You just ain't. It's not going to happen. I mean, I can't even remember. I thought we had just the site work pulled out of it. Well, the hangar cost, I tell you what, the hangar cost that we had was $8 million.
$8 million.
I mean, 850,000, and then the electrical for both of them was 111. So 842 chip, do 842 plus 111. Yeah.
Nah,
Well,
that's too-
this is
956.
Bay Minette's pricing using your square footage footprint. So $950,000. So that means the site work's $1 million or 900,000.
The site work.
The site work, the taxiway construction,
Oh, okay.
the dirt being hauled in, the drainage, all that stuff.
And then erecting the vertical.
And there's erecting hangars.
Right, and so if you don't go the route that lets you use the grant money, then there's no reimbursement for a taxiway, there's no reimbursement for a hangar, there's no reimbursement for nothing. So now you definitely on the hook for 1.5 million, unless you can build it all for 1.5 million, I still think you're still on the hook.
We got to figure out what the cost is to build it the way it sits. And then what's the cost to build it with the upgraded standards required to get the reimbursement. And then do the math on the payment on the two, and then the numbers will speak for themselves.
And we'll work towards getting that done for the next meeting.
Mhm.
Does that work? I'm not prepared, I mean.
Yeah, that's fine, and I can help however I need to. I mean, we've got rough estimates on dirt quantities and everything for that whole thing,
Yeah, that's good.
which you should be able to use these numbers
For a budget.
for a budget for dirt quantity wise.
I'm sure you got them all fat. We can trim them all by 10%.
We can
No.
take 10% off.
No, That don't do me any favors.
Anything else?
No, I'm done.
We've knocked it around. All right, that's good. All right, Josh, you wanna bring up number?
Can I ask a question before we do that?
Yes, sir.
I assume when we go to a bank, we can, any loan we'll take be an interest-free loan?
Be like a
We
construction-
qualify for that?
What do you mean an interest-free loan?
Excuse me, tax-free loan. Yeah, interest-free is better, but a tax-free loan.
We can ask, my sense of it, Vince, is that you have to do so many, it's kind of like working with Volcker, it's so expensive to get a bond attorney involved, that it may, I'll look at that. Certainly, yes, it would be a tax-free loan.
I'm talking about the bank side
understand,
of being
I But they're not, but
Tax-free loan.
to close it, it's gonna cost us $20,000 or $25,000 to get somebody to give us a qualified opinion to make it a tax-free, a bank qualified tax-free. So we'd have to look at that, if that's worth doing or not, same kind of thing like we look.
we have to get a separate opinion.
Normally, the bank's going to require that opinion from bond counsel that it is going to be tax-free before they'll issue it on that basis.
But if it's not a bond, it's just a loan.
I think a bond is like really high. I mean, we pay $50,000 to refinance them. I think you get a tax-free loan for, I think we'll look at it. We'll look at it. We'll look at it.
Yeah, we
Tax-free
can-
loans are a little bit cheaper.
I mean, I'm going to start with the legislation for airport authorities, just to see if that speaks to it. But if it doesn't, getting into the Internal Revenue Code is just a little bit outside the scope of what I could do in terms of offering any kind of an opinion. So we definitely, if it's not bond counsel, we would need somebody with a little more expertise in tax matters to be able to certify to the bank that it would be a tax-free loan for the bank.
But we gotta get that answer for our interest rate for our calculations.
Interest rates are pretty cheap though now. I'm not sure the tax-free, usually if it would be 1%, it'd be 0.75. I'm not sure there's that much difference. I mean, we can look at it. I mean, I don't know. But we'll answer two questions. We'll see if we can get a tax-free rate, and then we'll see how much it costs to get a tax-free loan.
We can probably save 0.5% or better
We can.
if it works. And then, of course, we can do all this tax-free, construction-wise, sales tax-free.
We're out of
Yes.
sales tax.
That's right. That part's right. And I mean, I can offer an educated opinion, but as far as that gold stamp of approval, that's a little bit above my pay grade.
And I don't think, help me with this, I don't think the enabling legislation for an authority, we have to truly bid out everything, do we? Anyone?
No, that part is correct. I mean, we are exempt from the public bid laws. And we are also tax exempt from things like sales tax. So there are a number of benefits for the airport authority in that regard. I just want to make sure or offer again an educated opinion about whether a bank loan would be tax exempt for the bank, because they're going to rely on that, and if it came back to be taxable, then, yeah.
All right. Number 6, can we, last time we talked a little bit of, why don't you give us an update of where we're on the 2 leases?
Well, as far as where we are on the leases, we have prospective tenants interested in both P10 and P11. And when I say P11, I mean the larger version of P11 that was on, I think, the airport terminal layout plan that was just discussed. So we have prospective tenants for each of those. I haven't actually been in contact with the prospective tenant for P10. I have had a couple of telephone discussions with the attorney for the prospective tenant for P11, and they had some minor questions about the lease, but other than that, it appeared, to me anyway, to be ready to move forward. I think the big question is whether or not there's going to be a 40-year lease term, or if we're going to stick with a 30-year lease term in terms of providing leases to each of these tenants. So that's the real question, but I think that, and if I had a sense of it, Mr. Chairman, I'd say that both of them are interested, probably more so at a 40-year term than a 30-year term. But with respect to the attorney for the prospective tenant on P11, he's just waiting for me to plug some numbers in so that he can go back to his client and say, this looks okay, and we're ready to go. Again, the prospective tenant for P10, I really haven't had any direct discussions. I just understand that he's interested in that hangar pad.
I think we can kind of say that both people are interested in both P10 and P11 with a 40-year lease term.
Yes, I was told quite literally that if we agree to a 40-year reversionary period, that the gentleman that wants to take two of the corporate hangar sites and combine them into one, and then the other gentleman, since he's already made a public announcement here, I can mention his name, Zach McNeil, that they both would sign in short order.
Okay. So with that segue, let's discuss the approval of a 40-year lease term for hangars new hangars on the east side. Do I have any discussion on that?
What are competing airports do?
Gulf Shores is a competing airport, they're 40-year lease. And they're actually 24 cents or 30 cents.
And Destin is 40 and about like $1.30 a square foot. So
Who is
Destin,
Destin?
Yeah.
Okay.
and Mobile on a larger corporate hangar, they would be 40 years too. Theirs is tiered approach, but I don't see much merit. I don't see the merit in that. So
Joe, Miss Jack, I'm not gonna vote, but I still object to them all being 40 years. We're in a pandemic. I don't think making decisions on these things that are going to affect us for 40 years is wise. I'd like the tiered approach. I didn't have time to. I looked at your proposal, Joe, and thanks for putting that out. Although with almost no time to react to it, I tried to get up with you and Vince to go over that earlier, and I'm telling you, the city got into some bad leases 25, 30 years ago, and I just wish we'd be more patient. And I object to all of them being 40 years, not tiering it.
Well, these two meet the criteria that you suggested for 40 years. We've
Right,
approved
that's
these-
fine.
Yeah, let's approve
But-
these two leases for 40 years, and and someone comes in and says, I'll build a 60 by 60 hangar, then we can discuss that at the
Jack,
time.
these are all.
Well, I mean, do you need to do it prior, or once you do it, are you locked in, to not treating everybody equally because you didn't have the rules set prior? That's my concern.
Well, I mean, I think it's pretty clear this is a square footage hangar they're going to build, and this is what the land lease rate is.
Yep.
We've never said it's for any size hangar, it's just for those two hangars that are being built. So I
And
think,
so, Josh, can we come back later and maybe adopt the tiered approach if we come up with one everybody could agree with?
The tiered approach that was discussed when we had the conference call with Mr. Kofelt was that we could distinguish between different types of hangars. For example, T hangars are not similarly situated to corporate box hangars. I don't believe you can distinguish between corporate box hangars if that's what they all are.
Can you distinguish based on square footage,
on
Josh?
size.
Can
Joe,
you
I don't
change the
remember
term
that.
based on the square footage of the hangars?
I don't remember that from our discussion. I remember the distinguishment being between the type of hangar, but not the square footage.
Might be a good
But
question.
Joe is citing an example of an airport in our area that does just that.
Well, that was Mobile, and it was, I was just, Mobile does do that.
But they do that, but they don't have any corporate
They don't have
hangars or
any corporate
corporate
hangars either.
airplanes,
They
they're all
have-
businesses. That's the.
And they do it on, they don't do it on square foot, they do it on dollar amount invested. So I think square foot is a very fair way.
I mean, if Graham would be willing to say we could differentiate, then we could move forward with this, and this could be a discussion
Well,
later on. When someone comes and said they want to lease.
Yeah, I want y'all to be able to move forward on this, but I just don't want that to, drive the decisions on the rest of them from now for the next 40 years.
Well, do I have a I think I think these two are specific enough, we can get the leases signed and move forward if we act.
Okay, and then if you made a mistake, you can never undo it. Is that what you're saying, Joe?
That's what I'm saying. be locked in for 40 years
With these two,
for these two,
yeah.
for these two.
I mean, Mobile has.
And my question is it going to impact anything after that? Because once you adopt this, are you going to have any authority at all to say, all right, we're going to base how long your lease can be based on value or square or size? Take your pick. I mean, if this keeps us from doing that, then it's a bad move. It's such a rush to get a deal done, you're not looking into the future.
What is the square footage on these two proposed?
Zach's is at least 10,500 feet. I think it's 11,000. The other one's 21,000 square feet.
It's a 100 by 120 box.
That's Zach's. It's
Okay.
12,000, yeah.
Could we just go ahead at this point and adopt a tiered approach?
Or can you set the minimum at least say for hangars of this, whatever size you think is appropriate, you can, we can grant a 40-year lease?
Yeah, that's.
At least with that, at least distinguish that. That's all I'm saying, guys. Got one chance to get it right.
10,000, would you be okay
That's,
with?
that's what I was thinking, Jack. If we could just adopt 12 and over, we would consider for 40 years. 12
How about
and over.
11.5? Just
11.5.
Actually,
We would
Jackson's
consider for
10,500.
40, and under that, it needed to be 30.
And I would add to that also, the price per square foot on the 40-year lease is higher
significantly.
than would be the price per square foot for a lesser term.
Yeah.
I mean, I think, my recollection of what we discussed is that it would be 30 cents per square foot
That's right.
if they elected the 40-year lease versus, I don't want to speak out of school, but 27 cents a square foot for a 30-year term.
That was the trade-off, yes.
Can we make that into a motion, Will?
Yeah. I propose that the Fairhope Airport Authority consider tenants with plans for an 11,500 square foot box hangar and up for 40-year terms. Anything under 11.5 would be at the 30-year term with the different rates for the two terms.
Okay. Do I have a second of that motion, or do we need further discussion? Have a second?
Well, let's discuss, I mean, the one Jack came up with was greater than 10,500 square foot. So what big is Zach's is going to be?
Zach's is going to be 120,000 square feet, or 12,000 square feet. 100 by 120.
So, yeah, I'll jump in this discussion again. So, I don't know that we also got to be careful of tying yourself. If you say under, I don't know if you want to tie yourself down to a 30-year lease, because there may be that middle ground. There may be that there's an interim where it's, something below 10.5, and, we think a 35-year term is good. So I'm trying to be flexible here. I don't know if we can define it. I mean, you could even make the motion that says, and square footage is, less than that, will be decided at a later time, or will be, rates will be set at a later time for square footage is less than that.
I think that's wise, Jack, yeah, because let's go ahead and vote on the two corporate hangars today, and we can continue this debate for smaller hangars later. We don't have to pin it all down right now.
In that resolution, it gives you the flexibility to change that, because what I'm really afraid of, John, is just setting that precedent. If you don't put some elastic clause in there, you may be locking yourself in.
Well, I'll defer to Josh on that.
Well, wait, what's the elastic clause that's discussed?
His motion was that if it's over 11,000, whatever it was, 10,500 maybe, or was it 11,500? He said over 10,500, it'll allow to be a 40-year lease, and he said, and under that, they would be given a 30-year lease. And I'm saying, well, now that's kind of going maybe too far the other way. In other words, you make that motion, you're saying anything under 10.5's got to be a 30-year lease. And I'm saying, I'm being staunch on the 40, but I'm not being so staunch that everything's got to be 30 either. I said, give yourself some elasticity in there.
Well, all
Sure.
we really need to do today is say we would approve these 2 leases for this size hangar at 40 years. And then we open for discussion when someone approaches us and wants to build a smaller hangar.
Yeah, and I'm more concerned about the lease rates themselves, because the grant assurance that is implicated by this discussion is the economic non-discrimination. So that's really what we're talking about as far as what the FAA is going to look at if there's ever an inquiry made to them. And so what that means is similarly situated tenants have to be treated the same way in terms of what they're paying to rent ground space from the airport authority. So similarly situated tenants, obviously if they're building the same type of hangar, to me that's similarly situated. But if they agree to take a lower lease term, and in exchange for that lease term, they get a little bit of a lesser price per square foot on the ground rent, in my opinion, that's okay. Because the longer lease term is paying the higher amount of ground rent. I don't think, in my opinion, that is economic discrimination. I think that they're getting 2 different products, if you will. One of them's taking the shorter lease term. They're paying a little bit less because they're taking a shorter term. The other one's getting a longer term, but they're paying more money. In my opinion, the price of the rent is kind of where the line is drawn, and not so much with the size of the hangar or the cost of the hangar necessarily. But again, the thing that Graham made very, very clear is that we have to treat box hangars similarly, but something like a T hangar, if somebody came in with a proposal for a T hangar, that's not similarly situated to a box hangar. So you have different types of hangars, but if somebody proposes the same type of hangar, we have to have a reasonable basis to say, this is why we're treating this person differently, and it's because they chose a shorter lease term. So, and Hank, if I've missed anything from our discussion with Graham, please let me know. I mean, I'm going a little bit by memory.
I took that from it as well.
Let me restate.
Yeah, won't you modify your?
Let me restate the motion then. Let me move to approve these 2 leases for P10 and 1011 on a 40-year lease term, noting in the motion that they are both above 11,500 square feet, and that future hangars are to be considered at that time based on price and square footage and term.
Okay, we have a motion.
Can I ask a question about what you just said?
Yes.
So if we approve this motion, and then I come out tomorrow and want to build the T hangars we just talked about,
Correct.
which are 15,900 square feet, would I get a better lease rate than 40 years, since it's 50% bigger than one of them?
Not necessarily, because you're talking about a different type of hangar.
All right, wouldn't I get a better price? I'm building more hangars, bringing more airplanes, they're going to buy more fuel. I'm just being the
I
devil's
know,
advocate.
and
from
I
the
think
argument.
potentially you could get a better price, but what I'm saying is that the airport authority is not bound to treat corporate hangars and T hangars similarly.
I understand.
So lower price, higher price, probably would depend on whatever you as the owner could negotiate with the airport authority for the ground rent. But just because the airport authority is giving a 40-year lease at 30 cents a square foot to corporate hangars does not mean the airport authority gives a 40-year lease at 30 cents a square foot to a T hangar.
If it's 5,900 square feet bigger, wouldn't you think that person would assume they would get a 40-year lease? Since we're talking about size being the determining factor?
Oh, you mean in the context of the motion?
Yeah.
Go
I
ahead.
think this goes back to why Graham is saying the differentiation about a box hanger versus a T hanger. And the reason it's not necessarily based on square footage is because a T-hangar is a building with multiple units serving multiple people. Even though that one building may be owned by one individual, it's still serving multiple tenants within that building. Like a 10-unit T-hangar is gonna service 10 aircraft. And a corporate hangar, they may put multiple aircraft in that hangar of smaller size, but a corporate hangar doesn't mean that a corporation or two corporations joint venture together may not have 3 airplanes in there, but that's what I think signifies the difference. So I don't think it's necessarily related to square footage. It's based on what its use is. So if it's a revenue producing item in the form of aircraft storage with multiple planes versus a corporate hangar that's gonna have an office behind it and things of that nature, then that's different. It's totally different. You see what I'm saying?
I agree 100% it's different,
Yeah.
but it's
totally different.
59% bigger.
Yeah.
If we're talking about size, then,
Size matters.
yeah. If we're talking about you get this because of the size you're building.
Which
then-
would be, and if I understood the motion, that would be one factor. The other factors being price per square foot that you're willing to pay and also the term of the lease you're willing to accept.
And I'm talking about a more expensive building than that 10,500-foot hangar for the airport authority's benefit. I would demand, or I'd go to Jack Edwards and build it for 40 years, that I get at least that, if not more, because I'm building 50% bigger and investing more money than the 10,500-foot hangar tenant is.
And I don't think you're going to get, if I understood our discussion with Graham, I don't think you're going to get more than 40, or you shouldn't get more than 40 wherever you go.
I agree.
I don't think we'll get over, I don't think.
I'm just being the devil's advocate here because I'm going to vote no. I've made the motion twice, 2 months in a row, and said I wouldn't make it again, and I'm not, nor will I second one, even if it's exactly what I think it ought to be. But I think we're stepping off into a hole if we can come in and somebody can build this T-hangar next door and not demand they get exactly what the guy got that spent 2/3 of the money he's going to spend and 2/3 of the size. And that's where we get to catering to one, to another, and it needs to be across the board, in my opinion.
All right, we have a motion. We don't have a second. Do we have a second?
Repeat, well, let's go, we've gone around on this a couple of times. Why don't you repeat the motion? Or Joe?
Please.
I'll repeat it. I propose that we offer these 2 prospects we have on P10 and P11 a 40-year term at the rate we've discussed for 40 years, noting that both hangars are above 11,500 square feet, and that for smaller hangars or different types of hangars in the future, those prices, terms, and conditions are to be negotiated while not economically discriminating against future tenants.
I'll second that, yes.
Okay. Any more discussion? Can we vote? All those in favor of the motion, signify by saying aye.
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 Any opposed?
Aye.
So with Vince.
So 3-2, the motion carries.
Okay.
Okay? All right. Next piece of business, Continental Aerospace report. They've got a corporate policy. They can't go to outside meetings until the COVID remisses. So I'll give their report. No update on the airplane's still there, and that's an embarrassment. I don't know how we get it out. My sense of it is we don't get it out. I think it's been purchased. The party just hadn't come by and picked it up, the abandoned aircraft. So anyway.
What did they buy it for? Do you know?
I
He's
don't,
gonna put it in the backyard and paint it up for his kids to play with.
What did he pay for it?
It wasn't worth much. About what it's worth is scrap metal.
Number 2B is next year, we're gonna talk a little bit about a budget for next year. We'll certainly, the fob access and the card access, we'll put that as a budget item for 2021 to actually budget to do that. But we're gonna wait till next year to
And
move
they've
forward.
been, to compliment them, they've been embraced this more than the previous management at Continental. They've been, when we've discussed security, they seem to be a whole lot more on board with
Yeah.
it now than they were a year or 2 years.
I think that's good. The next two items, we had some straight line winds, I guess, a week ago Tuesday, and we lost the windsock. I didn't think we could lose the windsock, but the windsock broke. And Kyle has found us a replacement windsock for $4,350. I'd like to get approval to replace the windsock. To have a motion to replace the windsock?
I'll
So
make a
moved.
motion. No, go ahead.
Second.
All right, all those in favor of replacing the windsock for let's say $4,500, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The ayes have it. Next thing is the same straight line winds damaged, I guess really 5 skylights in the south hangar next to the Continental, and they significant amount of water got in the hangar last Wednesday when we had the second, and they were panicking about it because they got some water, not in an airplane, but they had to move airplanes around. So I've got a proposal to get the 6 skylights done for, by MV Rogers for $1,650. I'd like a motion that we get, and I'm not getting them replaced, I'm getting them covered. I'm getting them covered because, we've covered a lot of skylights before, they seem to just break and whatever, so I'd like to get those.
Do these plan to be covered at a later date anyhow, or did they?
No, when we did the, no, they were,
Okay.
when we did the roof replacement about 7 years ago, we put the skylights back in, probably a mistake. Since that time, Continental's put LED lights.
I
and
think
all-
we replaced some of these already, hadn't we?
Think
Or
so.
covered some of these.
On the
already.
north hangar, in the north, this.
The center hangar.
Yeah, the center hangar. So this is on, this will get, I think there's 10 skylights in the south hangar that haven't been covered, and this will get 5 of them. So, we kind of have to do it. I mean, so, do I have a motion to cover the skylights in the south hangar for $1,650? Signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Do we have a second? I don't have a second. Don, will you second it?
Yeah, I second that.
All right, all those signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, the ayes have it. Do you want to talk a little bit about, is this the time we want to talk about using Volcker, or do we want to save that for another meeting, or how do you want to do that, Vince?
Well, we got to decide which way we want to go, whether we want this grant application.
So
or
we'll
not.
just table that for next,
I
okay,
have better numbers.
okay.
Well, keep in mind, that grant application's been submitted.
And that's what I'm saying. The grant application is submitted. We don't know whether to get the grant application, but we're going to discuss how we go as far as building the hangar when we get some numbers, okay?
The grant application's been submitted, it's waiting for the mayor to do the electronic signature.
Wow, that's difficult. Okay. All right, well,
So it may be worth just holding it, if there's still some more discussion to be had about which way.
now I'd like to hurry, go ahead and submit it.
Okay, that's up to y'all.
Okay. I mean, I'll have to get with Gail tomorrow and get that figured out,
If we
okay?
go ahead and submit it, we don't need to
We
do
don't-
the 2-price process. One with the grant.
Well, what
one
if we don't
without.
get it?
Or what if we do get it?
We didn't take it last year.
We can always turn it down.
We
can
already
tell them
started-
no?
Yeah, you tell them no, you've already told them no.
We've already told them no twice.
Okay, all right.
Number 9 is acceptance. This is just me being, we were awarded $611,000 for the 2020-21 grant application. The city council accepted the money at their meeting on July 13th. I'd like for us to formally accept the money too. So do I have a motion to accept the FAA grant funding for 2022, 2021?
So move.
Have a second?
Second.
Okay, all those in favor of accepting the grant money, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Thank you. Update on the website.
I've got information on that if you want, Joe.
Okay, please.
Ben Montgomery, who's on our advisory council, has made contact with Emily.
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah.
So actually, Ben called me today, and we're gonna meet next Tuesday at the airport, FBO, for that purpose, to
Okay.
visit with her and her ideas. He also took a bunch of pictures, I think it was yesterday, new pictures of the airport to be used in the new website.
And you've got the content that we provided, you know, I think we updated the authority boards and, so, I mean, I think we've provided some content.
I haven't provided any content, but that shouldn't be hard to provide.
Okay.
I think several of us have.
Yeah, I mean, there's some,
They
We'll
got
send it out.
that. I gave her my credit card last month so she could go ahead and get started.
okay, and we'll talk about getting,
Expense reimbursement
well,
at some point.
that sounds like a plan.
Can you do that every month?
Number, number 11, this is, you know, one of the things that has come out of the construction of the T-anchors is really a formal discussion on what the, I guess really how the growth plans of the airport are on the east side. And so I'd like to, this may not be the time or the place really to have that discussion today, but there's lots of decisions that the authority needs to make in the next, you know, 3 to 6 months about, you know, whether we're going to have self-service, what's the role of Continental in the, you know, east side, are we going to have another general aviation terminal, we're going to look for a second FBO. All those things need to be considered thoughtfully and with, you know, and make some decisions on it. So, Vince, do you have any thoughts on that?
Several. If we're going to have, you know, we're a small airport.
Sure.
If we're going to have a second FBO, and then we would have essentially a third FBO with a self-service fuel farm, we'd have 3 people competing for the limited amount of gas that comes through Fairhope right now, would be a disaster for all 3. So I think we need to decide if we're going to put out for bid, or what are we going to do? I keep hearing Continental's name mentioned. I'm for one, or not for giving Continental anything on the east side. We need to put out a request for price and decide how we want to do it, and then whoever it is, if it is Continental or someone else, great. But putting a self-serve fuel farm there to compete with a future FBO would be a little useless. Maybe putting that there to be absorbed by a future FBO and it become their vehicle at that time would make sense.
And a self-service, I mean, yeah, I don't, the self-service fuel facility came up in an email exchange. I haven't really ever thought it was that good an idea.
Well, if you look, at self-service, there's not one in Gulf Shores, there's not one here, there's not one in Mobile, there's not one in Pensacola, there's not one in Foley. Generally, they go to airports that have limited service. Bay Minette, Atmore, St. Elmo, south of Mobile, they don't even have anyone there. It's a self-service pump. So you go to an airport that doesn't have an FBO, that's where you get fuel.
And you still have to test the fuel and everything too, don't you?
They have to do
Still have the
that.
same
Also,
protocols.
it has to meet all the quality standards. The only airports I've been to that had a full-service FBO, or like Fort Myers is one, the reason they have self-serve is they discount the price heavily. So we're, you know, if Continental's charging $4 a gallon and we put a self-serve tank, we can't, no one's gonna come over and pay $4 a gallon to buy off the self-serve when someone will pump the gas for them in the airplane. So usually what is associated with the self-serve is a deeply discounted fuel cost. So I don't know if we'd have, I don't see any financial benefits, and like Vince said, I agree. It'd be a discouragement for someone that wanted to come in here and set up business.
I've been to Ocala and bought self-service fuel for $1.25 a gallon less than the FBO selling. Now, if it's July or August and it's 100 degrees, I'm going to spend some money because I'm trying to enjoy a flight and not be wringing wet with sweat. But 9 times out of 10, I taxi my fat butt up there and fill it up myself and push that plane back by myself and walk a quarter-mile terminal to go to the cafe. You know, so simply because of the price of it. It does, it generates more traffic, it doesn't generate more revenue because we're cutting our own throat, essentially.
I had always thought the self-service at airports that had it and had an FBO was part of the FBO.
And
You
some
have
of
a
them are,
choice
yeah.
at that
Right.
FBO.
And-
So it wouldn't be 3 FBOs, it'd be 2. wouldn't it?
Well, if we put it in, and then we had a third person doing FBO, and then Continental's over here, yes, it'd be 3. If we
Yeah.
absorbed it into a future FBO,
That's what I thought
then it'd be
it was
2.
everywhere,
Right.
not particularly.
But if we do
And-
that, then let's get an
And it's
FPO,
pretty,
let
they're
them do
pretty,
it.
aren't they
Right.
like $200,000 to build? I
Yeah,
mean,
then we can
I mean,
let
how
a
we got
future
to-
FBO build that and us not build that.
Yeah,
And plus, the expense of building it, and we can't use federal funding because it's
Sure,
revenue
it's
producing,
revenue
that takes us out of the federal funding.
And I answered that email.
Modification.
You know, the fuel comes from the refinery, and it's checked before it goes into the transfer truck. And then when it gets here, it's checked for temperature, and it's checked for particulates, and then it's pumped into the tank. And then that tank has to be sumped every day, and records kept, and for water and particulates. And someone's got to keep the records, and they have to be trained to do it, and they got to pay the liability insurance, and the list doesn't end.
Yeah, I mean, it's not something to take on without a lot of thought. To one of your points about Continental assumes that they're gonna, if we build a generation terminal, that they would have these side, that's an assumption on their part. We've never had a conversation like that.
I just keep hearing it, and their name keeps coming up, and if they're gonna build one, they need to come on, you know, and say they wanna do it.
I mean, I think what we do is, maybe next year this time, when we get some more, get these corporate hangars and some T hangars, have a little bit better story to tell, the economy's a little better, approach them and say, this is what we want to do, are y'all gonna be a partner or not? I mean, or do we need to, I think we need to, that's a serious discussion, probably for another time, but.
I mean, I think we're better off putting out an RFP because someone else might want to
Sure.
bring more to the table.
I think I asked for this to be put on here because it keeps coming up about a self-service fuel farm. Do we want to do it or do we not? And that way we won't be batting it around 6 months from now.
What I'm hearing saying is it doesn't make sense for us to do it.
If we said we don't want to do it, we can change our mind a year from now and say, yes, we do, and here's the reasons why it makes sense now.
Well, let's just, I don't see any real reason to promote it or go forward. And by the way, we don't have $200,000 to build it, so
There we go.
that makes it real easy. All right, Amy just texted me and she got tied up in a meeting, so she's not gonna be here. The treasurer's report is an attachment. We're pretty much on budget for the year. We've had a little bit of shortfall in revenue, but we've caught up our expense, we've managed our expenses pretty well, so we're pretty much on track to where we need to be. I guess on the revenue side, the fuel is a little bit down, but it's down, $3,000. That's kind of, that's where we are, but we've certainly managed expenses. We've been fairly lucky this year. We haven't had any real major expenses as far as just general maintenance, other than this windsock and the hangar, those skylights. We haven't had that much expenses at all. Anybody got any questions about the financials?
we're in a little better shape than we were last month. The revenue versus
Yeah.
budget and the expenses versus budget last month, we were $3,000 to the bad net, the two of them. Now we're $3,000 in round figures to the good, so that's a $6,000 move. We're in pretty good shape.
Yeah, we do a pretty good job with it. We need some more revenue sources, and I think with these hangars and these ground leases, that'll help. Okay?
When's our land rent from the farming come in?
We need to bill them this month. Traditionally, last year we billed them in August, and it came in September. It really should be in October, but they came in so early it's only $3,500. It's not, we're just collecting rent, not collecting, we had some, at 1 year when we got 22,000, we collected some back rent, if you remember.
Oh, that had the back rent.
That was
Oh,
the back,
okay.
that was the.
That was my question.
Okay.
So we'll get $3,500 or so in farm rent. We'll bill this month for them. We just, one of the things we didn't do, we have to send the invoices to the state for the public safety hangar, 12 of them, and we lapsed, so they were a month late in paying us. Actually, their rent escalated, and they paid us 2 payments this month, so we just got that in today. Okay. Maintenance items, not really anything other there than, we've got some grass cuts to do, and that'll probably eat up all that money, but we should be fine. We did get this, Amy's gonna start the budget for 2020, 2021. If any of you have anything that you think we need to do, like the FOBs, or, we need to put that in our little capital budget, so that we can budget for those and get them done, and have them in a budget for 2020. So if you have anything that you think the airport, that we need to do, for example, we replaced some pavement last year, or 2 years ago on the concrete, skylights, the fob system, things that we, under $30,000 or $40,000 that we need to do, just let me know, and we'll put that in our budget. We'll try to,
Would we save any money from them mobilizing twice and getting equipment twice if we went ahead and did those other 5 skylights and got through?
Great. I think that's probably a good idea. But, they charged us the same rate for the 5 that they charged us the 4 that we did before.
You want to ask that price?
What?
You want to ask that
I'll ask
question?
them. I'll ask them. So yeah, I'll ask them and I'll get back to you.
I mean, if they're $1,000 to $1,350, let's go ahead and get them done.
Yeah, because they're gonna get broken at some point in time.
Yes.
We did get the $69,000 for the CARE Act money. We have that in our PNC account. What's y'all's pleasure about what we do with it? Or do you might just want to hold that off and use that as a reserve, or what do y'all want to do with it?
I think till we determine what direction we want to take with the T-hangers, I think we just need to hold
Well,
it.
that could be $69,000 that we could
Yeah.
have. So we've got it in the PNC account. We'll just use it there.
That'd just about buy a T-hanger.
By a door, at least. And then finally, the update of financing for the refinancing. And I wish Amy, Amy went back out to Greg Strawn at Bryant Bank, and with the rates having, the 5 and 7 year rates continue to go down and actually have not shown any movement foot. We asked him to reprice his proposal. And he really wasn't very responsive. He basically said that the 184, 185 number that he gave us in March was really what they were going to have to do. If they weren't going to move off that number, which is, to me, not very, it's not what I was hoping for. So my advice is we just don't do anything right now. We continue to follow it. We've got 6 more months to the prepayment penalty goes away. Then if we need to, we'll shop it more aggressively. Thoughts on that?
That goes away when? End of February?
End of
1st of March?
February.
We're gonna need to do something then because
Don't you think
rates are gonna go up.
You think rates are going? Well, I think that as we get closer to that date, Bryant Bank would be a little bit more responsive, because they know they could possibly lose it. I don't know.
This takes them from 10 basis points to 43. It's a pretty good jump on their end in what they offered.
Yeah. No, but the underlying thing, that they based it on, Vince, was 2.01%. Now it's 0.3%. That's the key. If he
But
had amended.
they bumped their fee from 10 basis points to 43.
Yeah, a lot.
They're 4 times better off.
So, anyway, I guess my recommendation, and Amy's, is really not to do anything now, but I think this is a real window of opportunity. We need to consider it this fall to do something. It's real money. It's real money. Okay? Anything else? I have a plaque here to recognize Bill Pennington for his service on the advisory board. I'll make sure Bill gets this. Bill's moving back to Birmingham, I think, and we'll make sure that Bill gets this plaque. We'll get it to him before he goes. I think that was very thoughtful for us to do. And then one final. They're having a grand opening for the new hangar, for Alan Gilbert's hangar, on August 7th at 9 o'clock. I'll send you all an email from Walt Bolton. If any of y'all want to go, they're having a ribbon cutting and a kind of reception. It's 9 o'clock in the morning, Friday the 7th. If any of you want to go, I'm planning to go, but it'd be nice if some more of the authority board members were there. Okay? Yes?
I got one more thing. On the grants for this year, that you guys have already got the agreements accepted on, the 600-something thousand? Are we ready to go ahead and issue contracts to contractors and get them going?
Yeah,
Okay.
I say that for everybody, we now approve contracts or sign contracts virtually or electronically. And I think the mayor signed
Oh, yeah, it's in there. It's in.
and as the city attorney signed it?
Yeah, the grant is open.
Yes,
Okay,
yes.
all right,
The
yes.
grant is open without them. So
Okay.
normally
No.
that process normally takes 30 to 45 days. But this year, everything's been fast-paced because all this
Okay.
COVID stuff.
So yes, to answer your question, is I would go ahead, let's get grant documents and sign them, and sign them, a contract and sign
Well,
them.
the construction contract.
Yeah.
And then, the next thing is the master plan ALP update that has started. We started getting ground control set for the LiDAR flying. So hopefully in the next month, we'll have the plane flying the site to get the 2-foot contours and all that stuff that goes with the airport.
When we do the strength testing of the runway,
We've got that getting worked on. Those guys have to come, I think they come from Ohio or somewhere to do that. But we're having to get that organized and get it put together, but that's in the works as well.
okay? Anything else?
Where do we stand on the Hanson contract?
Well, Don, you could.
Mr. Hanson talked to me just a couple of days ago, and they're waiting on the city of Fairhope for approval of their plans. So I'm pretty sure they're going to move forward.
Okay.
So, let me follow up on that. So, will he build his hangars on the west side when the city gives him his approval?
Yes, I'm almost positive.
He won't build on he'll,
He's all in on the southwest corner, so that's his corner.
Okay, you guys do, does he understand that he's got to construct everything that we had on those plans?
Hank, I'm gonna say I don't know what he understands.
Well, I guess what needs to be approved by the airport is the plan that's been submitted.
well, we're not in the business of approving plans. That's an Eric.
No. You have to basically approve, in other words, you giving him a lease space,
Yeah.
right, that's dedicated for private use. There was taxiway that was out in front of that. There was utilities that you guys had mentioned covering and all that stuff. And all that's on those plans. So it needs to be, when he goes to come onto the airport, he needs to understand that he's got to build it the way that is in order to be FAA compliant.
Well, does Eric Cortinas know all that?
That I'm not sure of.
Right.
But the
Last
plans,
I heard, this was all squashed.
the plans that you certified, that have all that in there?
It has every bit of that
So-
in there, but I've also been told by those guys that they're not building that pavement that's outside their lease space, and they're not gonna put in utilities to put in a fire hydrant or anything else, so I'm just,
I haven't been told that.
oh, they've told me that, is what I'm saying.
Well, they can't.
That's why I'm making this comment now, is that if they're gonna move forward that way, I'm just asking the board or the authority to make sure that what they're putting in place, they're putting in place that's FAA compliant. In other words, everything that I've got on that
Sure.
set of plans. They can't just build a T-hanger and the apron space right in front of it.
Vince, how would you handle that?
I make a motion that we get Hank to send his drawings to the city of Fairhope and be sure that they match each other when Eric approves them.
Yeah, I mean, I don't want to get in the, I mean, that's what Eric does, and, I mean, yeah, I mean, he needs to build it to what was submitted in the plans.
Yeah, like I say, I just know how things go sometimes. I've seen it in other places where they build just what they want.
They won't do it here.
Because they won't, in other words, there's nobody to be out there to watch that construction.
No, but I'll know that he doesn't have a fire hydrant there.
Yeah,
You know, I
that's
mean,
one thing,
I mean, I'll know that.
yeah.
So where does our offer stand to help with the utilities now that we're building our own hangars on the east side?
Well, we made the offer, we can't, I mean. So does your,
We got a motion on the floor.
what is the
Do
motion?
we have a second? Do we get Hank to send his drawings to the city of Fairhope?
I'll say.
They've been sent,
They've been
because
sent.
they went to Don, and then Don sent them.
Well, do we have a
I'm talking about
motion
direct.
to send?
I can send them directly to Eric, and I'll be happy to call him.
Yeah, a motion, and do we have a second?
Chip, second.
Okay, all those in favor of making sure that Hank sends the plans to Eric Martinez in the building department for the west side hangars, signify by saying aye. Any opposed? Okay, the ayes have it, so that.
And then I guess, does that go against, if they're doing that, Don, does that take away from the deposits that you have on the east side?
Well, it does. It'll take potentially 6 deposits away, but I'm not concerned about that at all.
Okay.
Because we still got a lot of people on the list, we haven't talked to about deposits, so.
And we did make an offer on the east side, the west side, but then it wasn't working out, so we decided to go to the east side, and they decided to come with us, and they gave 6 deposits over there,
I
so I
was
think any
told- I was
offer
told-
on the west side is null and void.
I thought he was, had basically regrouped and gone to the east side.
That was the last discussion I
They
had.
gave,
Till today,
they
that
gave
was the
6
last time.
deposits, and so we decided we were gonna build over there, and they signed up with us, and got on the front of the list, so I think anything they're doing on the west side, they're now on their own, because we've committed to spending money where they agreed to
I
go.
think we just need to have a conversation with them and say, you know, this is, we're going forward with these hangars on the east. We want you to be part of them, you know. I think, I don't know. That's-
I would be in favor of rescinding the offer, because things have changed considerably.
and we need that
There's
$53,000.
no need for us to spend $50,000 on the west side now.
I mean, part of that intent, when we did that, was for us to build T hangars down there.
Right.
That's why
We were gonna do it
willing to pay
because
towards
it
infrastructure, but
benefited
now
us.
we're headed in the other direction. And actually, that's kind of what started this, is when they decided, mentioned they weren't gonna build over there.
So do we want to amend our resolution to, we don't have a new resolution to withdraw offer of.
I would ask the board to hold off on that or lay that over for a month. I'd like to take a look at that
Okay.
before we make any formal action, because there was a motion made by the board to that effect, and I need to go back and look at the correspondence to see if any of that correspondence could support board action to that effect.
Okay.
Thank you.
They have told you,
Good point.
and they actually signed up on the waiting list on the east
And
side.
send checks.
It's in
They have
deposits.
deposit checks with Don.
That's pretty affirmative, I think.
Well, honestly, they wanted to have an insurance policy in case they decided not to build on the southwest corner. And the deposit checks are refundable until the point of construction. They seem, well, from what I could tell, they're pretty motivated to break ground soon, depending on what Eric Cortina says. Eric has the plans.
And I think just as a side note, I think, and I guess we probably need to relay that on a different subject, but the deposits are probably non-refundable when we order the buildings versus when construction starts.
That's a good idea, yes.
So as we commit money to it, that's when
Right.
the deposits become non-refundable.
And we need to have escrow agreements signed too. I mean, deposits, so we've got some, but we don't have, I don't think they all match.
You've got most of them, yeah, they're in that envelope that I gave you.
But I don't have one in front of me. I think the escrow agreement says it's refundable up until the point that construction's completed.
I've got it here.
Could we revise that? I mean,
If they haven't signed it yet, we can revise
I
it.
kinda think once we send a check for hangers, we need to.
Yeah.
You're in for a year.
That's it.
Give them a deadline of when it will be ready.
Tenant may request a refund of escrowed funds at any time prior to execution of a lease with owner.
So, once the lease is signed,
I mean, when will we get a lease signed, when we,
spend money to order the buildings.
yeah. So that would cover it if we.
It would, I mean, if they're presented with a lease and they don't sign,
Yeah.
they lose their spot.
We firm up our list at that point.
Right.
Is there any other business to have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
We got any comments from the public?
What? Sir,
Any
Public
comments
comments?
from the public?
any public comments? Okay. All right, I have a motion and a second. I will adjourn the meeting at 5:56.